Have you ever noticed that the people who seem the least desperate for attention are often the ones others respect the most? It's a strange paradox. The harder some people try to be chosen, liked, or validated, the more frustrated they become. Yet others move through life differently. They don't chase, they don't beg for attention. They don't constantly worry about being accepted. And somehow they appear calmer, stronger, and more attractive. Not because they're cold, and not because they don't care, but because they've learned a psychological truth that most people never fully understand. In this video, we'll explore the psychology of people who don't chase anyone, why they seem emotionally unshakable, and what they know about self-worth that completely changes the way they approach relationships, attention, and validation. By the end, you may realize that true confidence has nothing to do with getting others to choose you, and everything to do with no longer needing them to. Most people think that not chasing others is simply a personality trait. They assume some people are naturally confident, naturally independent, or somehow immune to rejection. But psychology suggests something very different. The people who don't chase anyone often develop specific habits, mindsets, and emotional skills that allow them to remain grounded even when others seek approval and validation. In this video, we'll explore 7 psychological traits that set these individuals apart, and why understanding them may completely change the way you view confidence, relationships, and your own sense of self-worth. At the core of most chasing behavior lies a hidden fear. If this person rejects me, what does that say about me? For many people, acceptance becomes more than a pleasant experience. It becomes proof of their worth. When someone responds quickly, they feel important. When someone pulls away, they begin questioning themselves. This creates an exhausting cycle where self-esteem rises and falls based on other people's reactions. But people who don't chase anyone tend to operate differently. They develop a sense of identity that exists independently of external approval. Their confidence isn't built on constant reassurance, attention, or validation. That doesn't mean they never feel disappointed when someone loses interest. It simply means they don't interpret every rejection as evidence that something is wrong with them. They understand that another person's opinion is influenced by countless factors, many of which have nothing to do with their value as a person. As a result, they stop constantly adjusting themselves to gain acceptance. They don't feel the need to perform, impress, or become whoever others want them to be. Instead, they focus on living in alignment with their own values. And ironically, the moment someone stops seeking approval from everyone around them, they often become far more confident, authentic, and emotionally attractive than they were before. But having a strong sense of self is only part of the story. Once someone stops measuring their worth through other people's opinions, something else begins to change. The way they view opportunities, relationships, and even rejection itself. And that's where the next psychological shift becomes incredibly powerful. One of the biggest differences between people who chase and people who don't lies in how they view opportunities. Many people operate from a scarcity mindset without even realizing it. They believe that one person, one relationship, one opportunity, or one outcome will determine their future happiness. And when something feels scarce, the fear of losing it becomes overwhelming. This fear often leads people to overthink, over-explain, and over-invest emotionally. They become so focused on holding on to something that they slowly lose sight of themselves in the process. People who don't chase anyone tend to see life differently. They understand that meaningful opportunities are rarely as limited as they appear in the moment. Instead of viewing every connection as a once-in-a-lifetime chance, they recognize that life is constantly changing, introducing new people, experiences, and possibilities. This doesn't mean they take relationships for granted. It means they don't place the entire weight of their happiness on a single outcome. Because of that, they can approach connections with genuine interest rather than fear. Think about the difference between someone who believes, "If this doesn't work out, I'll never find someone else," and someone who believes, "If this isn't right for me, there will be other opportunities ahead." Both people may care deeply, but one is acting from fear, while the other is acting from trust. And trust creates a kind of emotional calmness that others can feel. When people stop treating every interaction as their last chance to be happy, they become more present, more authentic, and far less likely to chase validation from others. Ironically, that sense of inner security often makes their relationships stronger, not weaker. If there's one thing that drives people to chase, it's uncertainty. Human beings naturally prefer clarity. We want answers, reassurance, and a sense of control over what happens next. When those things disappear, the mind often fills the gaps with fear. A delayed reply suddenly feels significant. A change in someone's behavior becomes a source of endless speculation. Before long, people find themselves creating stories in their heads, imagining worst-case scenarios that may not even be true. Imagine sending a message and not receiving a reply for several hours. For some people, that silence immediately creates a story. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they lost interest. Maybe something went wrong. What's interesting is that none of those conclusions are based on facts. They're based on assumptions created by uncertainty. And the mind often treats assumptions as reality when emotions are running high. People who don't chase anyone aren't immune to uncertainty. They experience the same questions, doubts, and moments of confusion as everyone else. The difference is that they don't immediately react to every uncomfortable feeling. They've learned an important psychological skill, the ability to pause before taking action. Instead of treating uncertainty as an emergency, they treat it as information. They understand that not every unanswered question requires an immediate response, and not every uncomfortable emotion needs to be fixed right away. This ability to tolerate uncertainty creates a powerful form of emotional stability. When someone becomes distant, they don't instantly assume rejection. When plans change, they don't immediately panic. They give situations room to unfold before drawing conclusions. In many cases, this patience reveals the truth far more clearly than impulsive reactions ever could. The reality is that uncertainty is part of every meaningful relationship, every important opportunity, and every stage of personal growth. No one can eliminate it completely. But people who stop chasing learn to coexist with it. They trust that clarity arrives with time, and they understand that acting from fear rarely leads to good decisions. By creating space between emotion and action, they protect themselves from unnecessary stress and allow themselves to respond with wisdom rather than impulse. And in a world where many people react instantly to discomfort, that level of emotional control becomes a remarkable advantage. But emotional strength isn't just about handling uncertainty. In fact, many people can stay calm for a while and still find themselves chasing validation later. The deeper question is this: what happens when there's nobody around to reassure you, distract you, or make you feel important? The answer reveals one of the most powerful traits shared by people who never feel the need to chase anyone, and it has everything to do with their relationship with themselves. One of the most overlooked reasons people chase others is that they've never learned how to enjoy their own company. For many people, being alone feels uncomfortable, not because solitude itself is painful, but because it removes distractions. Without constant conversations, notifications, or external validation, they're left alone with their thoughts. Many people spend years trying to escape loneliness without realizing that loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is the feeling that something important is missing. Solitude is the ability to enjoy your own presence. The first creates dependence. The second creates freedom. People who don't chase anyone usually develop a different relationship with solitude. They don't see being alone as evidence that something is missing from their lives. Instead, they see it as an opportunity to reconnect with themselves. They learn how to enjoy their own interests, pursue personal goals, and create meaning that doesn't depend entirely on other people. As a result, relationships become something they appreciate rather than something they desperately need. This distinction is incredibly important. When someone believes another person is the source of their happiness, every relationship carries enormous emotional pressure. They become afraid of losing it because they fear losing a part of themselves. But when someone builds a fulfilling life independently, relationships become additions to their happiness, not the foundation of it. They can care deeply about others while still maintaining a strong sense of self. What's fascinating is that this comfort with solitude often creates a quiet confidence that people naturally notice. Individuals who enjoy their own company tend to appear more relaxed, more authentic, and less dependent on constant attention. They don't enter relationships looking for someone to complete them. They enter relationships as complete individuals who simply want to share their lives with someone else. Perhaps the most misunderstood trait of people who don't chase anyone is their ability to detach from outcomes without becoming detached from people. Many assume that emotional strength means not caring, lowering expectations, or avoiding vulnerability altogether. But true emotional security works differently. These individuals still care deeply. They still invest in relationships, pursue opportunities, and hope for positive outcomes. The difference is that they don't make their emotional well-being dependent on a specific result. Most chasing behavior begins when someone becomes attached to a particular outcome. They convince themselves that a certain person must stay, a certain opportunity must work out, or a specific future must happen exactly as imagined. The more attached they become, the more pressure they feel. Every delay feels threatening. Every obstacle feels personal. And every sign of uncertainty creates anxiety. One of the greatest sources of anxiety is trying to control things that were never fully yours to control. Other people's feelings, decisions, and priorities belong to them. The moment you stop carrying responsibility for what isn't yours, emotional pressure begins to disappear. People who don't chase learn a different approach. They focus on what they can control: their actions, their effort, their character, and the way they show up in the world. At the same time, they accept that other people have their own choices, feelings, and paths. This acceptance allows them to remain emotionally invested without becoming emotionally trapped. Another reason people who don't chase anyone appear emotionally strong is that they understand the importance of boundaries. And contrary to what many people believe, boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about protecting your own well-being. They define what you are willing to accept, what you are willing to tolerate, and how you choose to invest your time, energy, and emotional attention. Think about a house without walls. Anyone can walk in, leave a mess, and leave whenever they want. Boundaries work in a similar way. They aren't designed to keep people out. They're designed to protect what matters inside. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear losing connection. They stay silent when something bothers them. They ignore behaviors that make them uncomfortable. They continuously give more than they receive, hoping their effort will eventually be appreciated. Over time, this creates a dangerous pattern. The more they abandon their own needs, the more disconnected they become from themselves. People who don't chase tend to recognize this pattern early. They understand that healthy relationships require mutual respect, not endless sacrifice from one side. As a result, they become more intentional about where they invest themselves. They stop chasing people who consistently show a lack of interest, effort, or respect. Not because they believe they're better than others, but because they recognize that protecting their peace is one of the clearest expressions of self-worth. Beneath all the traits we've explored, there is one foundation that supports them all: self-trust. In many ways, the reason people chase others isn't because they lack confidence in other people. It's because they lack confidence in their ability to handle disappointment. Deep down, they fear rejection, failure, loss, or uncertainty because they aren't fully convinced they'll be okay if things don't go according to plan. People who don't chase anyone tend to develop a different relationship with themselves. They trust their ability to adapt. They trust their ability to recover. They trust that even if a relationship ends, an opportunity disappears, or life takes an unexpected turn, they will find a way forward. Self-trust doesn't appear overnight. It's built through small promises kept to yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, every time you recover from a setback, every time you continue moving forward despite uncertainty, you create evidence that you can rely on yourself. Because of this self-trust, they approach life with greater patience and emotional stability. They don't feel the need to force answers, rush connections, or control every outcome. Instead, they allow things to unfold naturally while remaining confident in their ability to handle whatever comes next. At the end of the day, the psychology of people who don't chase anyone has very little to do with other people. It's really about the relationship they have with themselves. They don't avoid connection, they don't pretend not to care, and they don't walk through life believing they need no one. Instead, they've learned something that changes everything. Their value is not determined by who chooses them, who leaves them, or who gives them attention. The more someone builds their self-worth on external validation, the more power they give away. But the moment they begin finding confidence within themselves, they stop chasing approval, stop forcing connections, and stop living in constant fear of rejection. They realize that healthy relationships are built on mutual choice, not emotional dependency. And perhaps that's the greatest shift of all. Real confidence isn't making people stay. Real confidence is knowing you'll still be okay if they don't. Because when your sense of worth no longer depends on being chosen, you become free to show up as your authentic self, build healthier connections, and live with a kind of peace that no amount of external validation can provide. So here's a question for you. What's one area of your life where you've stopped chasing approval and started trusting yourself instead? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more insights into psychology, human behavior, and personal growth. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.